Welcome to PDT Podcast, you all.
Welcome to PDT Podcast. Another episode. What episode is this? 13, I think?
It's labeled 15, but it's probably episode 13.
Because we lost two. No, we didn't lose anything. We've had perfect ability to record and such. We haven't lost a single thing. Welcome back to this episode of PDT Podcast. If you've gotten this far, you probably know who we are, but we're going to introduce ourselves anyway. Starting with the Sound Man.
It's pronounced Soundman.
Soundman.
My name is Graham. I'm the Soundman. I don't know what I'm doing, but I aspire to know what I'm doing.
Don't we all?
Yeah.
I'm Torin. I'm
super kawaii.
relaxed today.
Yeah. Tell us about that real quick.
I took muscle relaxants today.
Nice.
Not they're prescribed to me, though they may be expired.
That's not
And had some back pain, so I took some muscle
My
relaxants.
milkshake brings all the boys to the yard and they're like,
Afternoon. But yeah, I'm Torin.
I'm Andrew. Not much else to it.
Andrew pretty much runs the YouTube channel and does all those great edits, and he probably, he's very useful and good at what he does, and he makes all the logos and stuff. So if you like the logos that you've seen, that's Andrew doing that.
Send me $5. I need
send
money.
Andrew $5 to
Send a
his
Patreon.
Yeah.
PayPal account.
Yeah.
Send your money
Pornhub
to
account.
the PDT podcast at gmail.com.
At pdtpodcast@gmail.com. All right. So now that we got the silly introductions on
Get
the
down
way,
to business.
we're
Let's get down to brass tacks.
still trying to figure out where to host the podcast so that we can get it on
Yeah.
iTunes. We haven't dedicated a lot of thought to it, honestly, but if you have a good solution for us, let us know.
Or if you want to create a website where we could host our podcast, like if you want to front the money for the servers.
That
Or if
too.
you really want to give us like $15 a month just to
Right.
like let us use SoundCloud Pro.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm too poor and white.
I
Because I live in Johnson County to pay for SoundCloud.
In theory, I could do it, but it's not the highest thing on my priority list, so...
I'm confused, but okay. So we're still trying to figure that out. Give us time. So things may not change from how they're currently going. I should silence my phone. All right.
I should.
So, stories from the week, everybody. Stories from the week.
Well, Graham here. Hi. I started, I've been doing yogurt. I mean yoga.
There it is.
For like a week and a half now, and feels good. Feels my body hurts because I just came from one.
Stink. I mean, like,
This
good, but...
this hot Asian mama really like showed me how to stretch my body.
Oh, man. That's going to be the title of the episode.
Right there. Too.
Hot Asian mama teaches him how to stretch his body.
That's quite the clickbait title.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
How does this sound for the name of the episode? Hot Asian Mama teaches Graham how to stretch his body.
Just have a lot of unnecessarily capitalized words, and then at the end in brackets just say "gone sexual?" question mark.
Sexual?
Right.
And then that doesn't even get addressed at all.
No.
Throughout it's just
No.
it's
There's
never-
literally nothing sexual about it.
or in parentheses NSFW.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's clearly on YouTube.
I love clickbait titles.
Yeah.
And on the thumbnail, just put like a naked woman. Yeah, that's
No, but like concealing all of her
Right.
parts behind leaves.
Actually, conceal all her parts with the PDT logo.
Nice. Gone sexual?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the episode. Man.
Yeah. It's
We're going
be
to get flagged on YouTube, so if you
Yeah,
never see
don't-
this episode,
do
sorry.
this.
Alright.
Don't do
Anyway,
this.
that's been my week. Other than that, I've just been working.
Yeah, it's been a largely uneventful week. Work has been not terribly exciting, but I mean, not every day can be. That's about
Yeah.
it for me.
I had an appointment with a student yesterday, who
Sorry.
didn't show up.
Hey, good.
And so I hung around and got paid for an hour for just pretty much socializing with my boss, which was fine.
That's nice.
But the one story that, so the student has come in before, and last time they came in and I worked with them, they were at a point in the assignment. The assignment's not due until the end of September, but they're working ahead on it, which is very good. I'm glad they are. But they got to the point in the assignment where they're supposed to have a section of survey data. Mm-hmm. Last time they came in, they needed to have, in this chapter of what they're working on, the survey data that they found. Guess what they didn't have?
Survey data.
Right. And how do you gather survey data?
Take a survey.
Right. You know what they didn't have?
Survey data.
The survey.
Oh.
They hadn't written the survey.
Jeez.
They hadn't written the survey.
Seems
They hadn't given out the survey. They hadn't gotten responses from the survey that they gave out, so they had no survey data.
Tight.
And so after that, I was like, I can't do anything. I think you should talk to your professor to make sure that you can get that your survey is what it should be. And she said, well, I'm going to talk to them this afternoon. And I was like, okay. And she's like, well, can we meet again next week? And I was like, to work on what? Because if you think you're going to be able to create a survey, like get it approved, print it off, pass it out, and get a response within less than a week,
you're crazy.
You're dreaming. But she was like, I really want to meet next week. And I was like, fine, I get paid for it either way. But then she didn't show up, so.
Oh.
Nice.
No call, no show.
It kind of sounds
call, no show.
ideal.
You get fired for that where I come from. But not where I currently work.
Well, yeah, but I can't fire a student.
Bet you could.
Just to
If you
yell
killed
at
them.
them.
That's not firing.
That's firing them from labs.
That's
terminating.
murder.
Okay. Terminated. All right.
So we have quite a few topics to talk about.
Yeah, we actually have
Quite a
something
few.
of substance to talk about this
Yeah.
week, potentially.
Yeah.
I have something I could talk about, but I don't know if we want to start with your topic or topics. I don't know what we have.
Really
or your top. Do you have a topic?
I mean, I prepared a little bit for the football one.
Okay, let's talk
So-
sports.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. If you followed the NFL in any capacity over the last year or two, you've heard of a player by the name of Colin Kaepernick.
Let's give some background. What's the
Who's
NFL?
this man?
The NFL is the National League of doing things with a football.
What's a football?
Okay, well,
Depends
if you
on
don't
where
know
you're
what that
from.
is, you're probably listening to the wrong podcast.
Yeah, that's true. If you don't know what a football is or what the NFL is, you've probably been very confused in earlier
Just
episodes.
go back to your drawing anime website.
Yeah, do some Googling
Hell yeah.
and then come back.
Anyway.
But thank you for listening, though.
Tell your friends.
So, yeah, Colin Kaepernick.
Also,
Colin
if you want to
Kaepernick
sponsor PBT.
has been, email us.
We love anime.
Anyway,
okay,
Colin Kaepernick's bit was in the spotlight a significant portion of last season for
Corey in the House.
yeah,
Great anime.
Great
yeah.
anime.
He was in the spotlight for watching Corey in the House
The greatest
on the
anime.
sidelines.
Greatest anime.
No, he was in the spotlight largely for kneeling during the national anthem, and I'd say anyone who pays attention to the NFL has fairly strong opinions in either direction
Most
of their
people
opinion
do.
of him. It's a small group that can be fine either way.
Right.
Initially, he just sat down. Like, he
Yeah.
didn't stand for it. And then he's like, it'll be better. It'll be more respectful to the military if I kneel instead. Which, I don't know if that's more respectful or what, but yeah.
There's a lot of issues I have with that.
With what I said?
Let's start
Yeah.
at a very basic.
Let's talk
How
about
do we
Colin
start this
Kaepernick
conversation?
from a sports perspective.
Okay.
Okay.
First, from a sports perspective.
Cool.
Okay. The main reason I wanted to bring him up from a sports perspective, people are upset he's not signed, which it's hard to bring up without mentioning all the other issues that have
Right.
gone on. But a lot of
He's
people,
currently a free agent.
yes, he's still a free agent. People claim that it's not right. It's because of either his race or because he
The drama.
knelt during everything, and there's drama.
But I thought he signed, like, he gave up his contract, which is why he's a free agent now. I don't
Yeah,
think
he
was removed.
paid his way out of his contract. Largely because the owner of the 49ers was like,
We're not going to start.
well, we're going to sit you or trade you.
Right.
And he went, I'd rather pick my team, and then he became a free agent, and all the teams went, no thanks.
Yeah.
Right.
And so, from a pure sports perspective, the other argument, like, against him being signed is, well, he's just flat out not that good.
Right.
And if you look at his 2016 season, where he played in 12 games out of, like, 16 possible, he had, I believe, what has up here is about 2,000 some yards, 16 touchdowns. And if you claim he's not good, I'm going to bring up some quarterbacks I think we can all agree are good, not good enough to start, by the names of Jared Goff.
Okay. Starting in LA.
Yeah. Not starting, but Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Back up in Tampa Bay now.
Tampa
Is that
Bay,
right?
apparently. I don't
Suddenly.
know if that's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah. After, hold on, how many picks did he throw in that Chiefs game? Was it 6?
As a Chiefs fan, I still feel bad.
I feel
We ended a man's career in 1 week.
Might as well have ended a man's life.
And then RG3, who is also still a free agent,
Okay.
but only played 5 games, but was still a contributor to the Browns. Blake Bortles, who can
Current
start
starter in
or could
Jacksonville.
not. And then Brian Hoyer. All people who can all have a case for not starting caliber quarterback.
Probably, yeah. Like,
Leans closer to third string than to
Uh-huh.
second string, but has somehow managed to find themselves in first string.
right. So, I'd love to hear the argument that Colin Kaepernick is worse than
Pick a
Brian
quarterback.
Hoyer.
Brian Hoyer.
I would say the argument could be made that depending on how much money he's looking for, he's not worth it.
Yeah. So if you
That's
look
true.
at if
Because
you look
Brian
at
Hoyer probably is pretty cheap.
if you look at Brian Hoyer's stats, he threw 1,400 yards last year, and what I think was, how many games was it? It was 6 games. He only started 6 games last year, but he threw 1,400, which I'm gonna pull out a calculator because I can't be bothered to do that mentally. Which is like, man, that's like 240 yards a game, which
That's not that good.
it's better than other quarterbacks, 240 yards a game, but
Wait a second. Over how many games did you say?
6 games, 1,400. So you take
Okay.
Which is
I actually
more than
was
what
thinking-
Colin Kaepernick got.
That doesn't make sense to me. That's crazy.
but he only had 6 touchdowns with a passer rating
Okay.
of 98.
Okay.
Then you compare that to Colin Kaepernick, who threw 2,200 over 12 games, which brings him
gonna
to
be
like
roughly
183-ish with 16 touchdowns. So like 10 more touchdowns, but averaging like 60 yards less a game.
Sure.
But then you compare it to other quarterbacks, and it's going to get a lot. Like
The Bortles.
Blake Bortles threw almost 4,000 yards in a season, 23 touchdowns, more picks, probably. RG3, I'm too injured to have really relevant stats.
Right.
But his 5 games, he did throw like almost 900 yards, which is 200 some a game, which I fault half to him, half to the fact that the Browns organization is not great. Ryan Fitzpatrick, on the other hand, with 2,700 yards in a season, 12 touchdowns, with a passer rating of 69.
Hey. Ballin'.
The fact that when people say the case for a quarterback having a job before Colin Kaepernick, my problem with that, Ryan Fitzpatrick, I didn't know he played for Tampa until about 5 minutes before we started this podcast. Otherwise, I would have prepared more for that. But I don't believe he was ever a free agent.
Ryan Fitzpatrick?
I thought he had more contract left, and they're like, it's not worth for us to cut him and owe him this much money. It's more worth our time to like trade him somewhere, which is why he would still have a job, because it's not worth their time to cut him and still owe him
and
money.
Pay the money. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, either way, like, Colin Kaepernick probably would like to be a starter on a team. But at the very least, I think that he's probably better than, let's say, 50% of second-string quarterbacks. And
Second string, I can say,
and that's like bottom of the barrel. Like, he's probably better than 75% of them.
But is he worth how much he's asking?
The problem that I have
that's another problem,
is not,
we don't know how much he's asking.
even not from a money perspective, I'm going to point to the Jets for when they signed Tim Tebow.
Sure.
It's a different situation, but it's similar. So you have, I forget even who it was at that point, if it was Geno Smith, whoever, hardly mattered. I think it was Mark Sanchez.
Yeah, I think it's Mark.
He was their number one quarterback. Who your number one quarterback is regardless. And you have a number two quarterback with a name like Tim Tebow or Colin Kaepernick, who has a group of people behind him who love him, a group of people behind him who do not like him in any way. There's drama that comes with that. If your number one quarterback has a not great game, because say you're on a team like the Jets, the Jags, the Rams, list of like the Browns, whoever, not strong quarterback, the second you have your number one has a bad game, the fans are cheering for the number two quarterback to come in the game.
Right.
It's going to be hard for a team to succeed without some version of stability at quarterback. Look at last year at things like the Browns, who started like 4 or 5, I think.
Right.
They were just pulling people from the stands by the end of the season.
By the last game,
Yeah.
it was basically, do you want to pay us $5?
Right.
All right,
Sure.
go ahead and get in there.
Yeah, put on some pads. Like,
Armor up.
it's not that, I think it's a combination of a lot of things. I think it's mostly the drama. If you look at what the problem was with Mark Sanchez, I think whoever it was in with the Jets with Tim Tebow behind him, he had a pretty okay start to the season, like 1 or 2 games. He put up decent numbers because the team was built around its defense anyway. If you can put up, say, 14 points a game, they're looking good because their defense could hold down the field.
Yeah.
And so when you have a game where suddenly he comes in and he throws a pick on the first drive, comes out, and it's a 3-and-out second drive, fans are getting a little restless. And then by halftime, there's 0 points, barely any yards. Come out at halftime, they're cheering for Tim Tebow to come in. And so as a coach and a GM, what do? You go, no fan base, screw you, I'm going to do what I want. Or do you listen to the people who are keeping your barely relevant team relevant?
Right.
But it's, without stability, like if a number one quarterback doesn't trust that he has his job, not because of how he's playing on the field, but because the fans don't like him, what motivation is there to stay? And so if you look at like Colin Kaepernick, what team wants to bring him on and be like, okay, well, you're going to be the number 2. And say he says, okay, and then say like the Ravens have interest. Joe Flacco is a good quarterback. We'll all agree he's good.
The
He's
best
not,
quarterback.
I wouldn't call him elite. I wouldn't call him below average. He's like, it's where you want your quarterback to be at least.
He's like
Flacco.
Alex
Tom Brady.
Smith,
Well,
I wouldn't say that,
but better in the playoffs.
yeah.
I would say Joe Flacco is what you want out of a quarterback at least.
Yeah.
He can hit his open receivers, throw a deep ball,
he plays
short,
the system
medium.
well.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's what you want. Say he comes in and week 4, he has a Ryan Fitztragic kind of game. Throws like 4 picks.
Real tragic.
They put up maybe 3 points, and they get blown out. He comes in the next week and starts off first drive and throws a pick. Fans are going to get upset if you have a quarterback with a passer rating of 90 sitting on the bench,
Right.
who put up 2,000 some yards in 12 games, which is, I mean, not great with the amount of, interceptions. He also, I think last year, he didn't have a ton of interceptions, but Colin Kaepernick in the past has been prone to, when you throw a pick, there's probably another one coming, and then another. But if he doesn't throw a pick, he's fine. It's a confidence thing. But it's amount of how much does he want to get paid, and how much drama do you want coming off your bench?
Right.
Well, and I think the money aspect is a big part of it, because like using the Tim Tebow analogy, is that with Tim Tebow you had people who were tuning in for Tebow.
Yes.
I can't say the same for Colin Kaepernick.
Yeah.
I would probably say the opposite.
Yes.
I would say I think there's actually data that said that as soon as Colin Kaepernick started this protesting thing, NFL viewership dropped. And so are you going to be a team
lot in his team, but even over
like, in general.
Yeah.
And I think if we had a lot of people who shared his concern and empathized with him and supported the cause who were already watching football, then that would be something where it's like, oh, I'm going to tune in to the 49ers to watch Colin Kaepernick
Right, there's
play.
just not that much overlap.
Right. And I think that using the Tim Tebow analogy again, do you have a lot of sort of Christian conservative people watching football?
Absolutely.
A lot.
Yeah.
Right. And so from a football perspective, I don't know if Colin Kaepernick is all that consistent because he'll have, and part of that is, if you look at when he started in the NFL, he was really, really good. And under the system that he was playing in, he did really, really well.
As a coach who has gone down to college.
Right. And then he was like, bye, I'm going to the U of M. And so they were like, well, here's this new system. And Colin Kaepernick crumpled.
Yeah.
And he continued to crumple. And he's still a good quarterback. But it would depend on
Serviceable,
him.
I'd say.
It would depend on him finding a system that he can work within, which I know is not a guarantee. And which any team that if I'm looking for a quarterback and I'm a GM of some team, I'm going to look at Colin Kaepernick and say, okay, well, our system is sort of similar to the current 49ers system. Colin Kaepernick does not flourish in that system, so why am I going to pick him up?
Right.
On top of him asking for too much money, which I don't know how much money he's asking for, so maybe
We would have no way of knowing.
I would imagine that a guy who's been to a Super Bowl is somewhat of a veteran quarterback, is a serviceable quarterback. Like, he's probably going to ask for quite a bit. And so,
I mean, at some point you got to have a job, and so you take the pay cut eventually.
I mean, I imagine he could retire now and be just fine. He's probably got a lot of money. But I think if I'm a team and I'm looking at Colin Kaepernick, I'm saying he's asking for this much. It's possible my viewership is going to drop. I don't know if he can succeed in the system that I would be bringing him into. So regardless of what the protesting he did, like if I agree with it or not, am I going to make money off of it? I don't know.
Right. That is, like, I definitely see that.
Also,
that point. Go ahead.
I do think it depends on also the location of the team.
Yeah.
Say the Cowboys wanted to sign Colin Kaepernick, their fans
that wouldn't go well.
would actually riot in the streets.
Right.
Which is fair for, let's say any team, but almost any team.
Seattle.
I'm going to say southish of Kansas City, and also
I'd say no middle regions, just
nothing
like
in the
far
Midwest
east or west.
I'm thinking it has to be either San Francisco, who he currently plays, or who he was playing for, or Seattle,
or a team desperate enough,
or
like Los Angeles, or maybe Cleveland.
the Redskins, maybe. But
even then, maybe.
yeah, I don't know, because I think we can guess about demographics of fanship, but the GM has all say in this.
Right, and that's kind of like, I think the whole problem with the GMs, like, not wanting to pick them up is more of a symptom of the problem than the actual problem, because, I mean, that kind of goes without saying. I'm just sort of speaking it because it is helping me think through all this. But I know not John Dorsey, oh my gosh, what's his name? The owner of the Chiefs.
Clark Hunt.
Yeah. Yes.
Andy Reid.
In an interview,
Jamal Charles.
mentioned, oh yeah, I would be, potentially I would be fine with signing Colin Kaepernick. But that statement kind of comes without any strings attached, because no, like, GM or owner in their right mind would sign a backup quarterback that previously took his starting quarterback's job.
Also, you have to look at, like, say there is an owner and a coach and a GM who are like, I'd be down. But here's the thing. Say it was the Chiefs. Colin Kaepernick took Alex Smith's job before. We just drafted Patrick Mahomes.
Right, Pat Mahomes.
We have Tyler Bray, who may not be great, but is probably going to be the quarterback
But
too
he's
for us this our
Been on our
first
team
season.
for like 4 years.
So, like, at what point, like, on teams that I imagine, like, Bill Belichick could make Colin Kaepernick a star again.
Right.
Because he could make a kicker wearing a sack over his head a great quarterback. But the problem is, they have Tom Brady and two other really good quarterbacks for the system. So at what point would you have to go as a GM or a coach or an owner go, I understand we're set at quarterback, but I'm going to throw another quarterback into the mix because we need more of this drama.
I guess my point in saying that was that, like, I think for Clark Hunt, it was like, I don't mind that he said it at all, but I think it was a really easy thing for him to say because it's actually never going to happen.
Yeah.
Like, his team will never actually have the hit to viewership or whatever that comes with signing Colin Kaepernick because they just don't need Colin Kaepernick.
Right.
But the Ravens, on the other hand, who actually are legitimately looking at him and sort of debating amongst themselves,
Baltimore,
like,
Maryland.
Yeah.
the I don't remember if it was the general manager or the owner literally said, I just read this today when I was doing some research. He was like, yeah, we're trying to figure out like what's best for our franchise. Pray for me.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa, man.
Yeah, I was reading about this earlier today too, where the coach, the GM, and even Joe Flacco were like, "Oh, I'd be super down." Like Joe Flacco was saying, like, "I would love for him to be on the team, but if he wants to start, he's gonna have to do it somewhere else."
Right.
And everyone
Because
went
I'm the starter.
Everyone went, "Oh, he doesn't want him there." I'm like, "Would you?"
That's not what he said.
Would you?
No,
he actually said he wanted him there because he'd be a great number 2,
Right.
especially in that system.
Right.
Because you look at the Ravens, like, okay, going back to Colin Kaepernick's really good seasons, they had serviceable wide receivers, 1 through 4.
Yeah.
Vernon Davis in his prime, and another good tight end. So he had good weapons, and it wasn't like the Chiefs you look at. We've got 2 or 3 good weapons. Double team one of them, they're done.
Right.
They
So it's really
couldn't,
just like
couldn't
one
afford
weapon.
to double team,
Right.
which is where the Ravens kind of are. It's a great system for him, but it's an even better system for Joe Flacco. So Joe Flacco's saying, "I'd love to have him here." The coach goes, "This will be great," and then the GM goes, "Yeah, that will be fine," and then the owner goes, "I don't want him here,"
Right.
I mean,
because we're probably going to take a hit to viewership or whatever.
Right.
which is where
And
it's
I
going to
think-
impact like actual money
Right.
standings and revenue
Which
for
is,
the team.
which is the real problem, I do think.
I think
But-
Colin Kaepernick, like in the Ravens, if he's willing to be number 2 for a little while, would turn into a great starter. Because
Yeah.
I think Colin Kaepernick could, because if we say that Colin Kaepernick like he does well under a system he's familiar with. If he can spend a couple years under Joe Flacco learning the system really well,
Yeah.
then Joe Flacco is 32. He's going to retire soon.
He's got
so-
maybe 4 years if
Right.
if his
Yeah.
offensive
If he
line
stretches it.
kills it.
Right. is he's going to retire soon, and they're going to need a quarterback. I don't know who they currently have as their backup, but if you can get Colin Kaepernick, who's a strong quarterback already, but just needs to learn the system to be really, really good, then I think he's a great fit for the Ravens.
Correct.
But it's a matter of the Ravens wanting to pick him or not.
So here's where the conversation sort of gets interesting.
A little spicy.
Yeah. Like, we all are on the same page that, like, Colin Kaepernick would be a serviceable quarterback.
In the right system.
In the right
with
system.
good
For the right
weapons,
money.
For a
you know,
decent amount of cash.
Whatever.
I think
So-
anyone who disagrees with that statement is
Has not watched enough football.
right, or is
Right.
coming from a completely different place.
Right.
Yes.
So, and now we look at management, who's generally okay with having Colin Kaepernick on, but it's maybe the ownership that has a problem with it.
And even if-
I don't necessarily blame them, because that's like, if I'm the owner of a business, this is why I'll never be the owner of a business, because I wouldn't make decisions like this. But if I'm the owner of a business, like, the bottom dollar's kind of the thing.
Yes.
And anything that's gonna make make us take a hit in that way, I'm just not gonna touch. Like, I'm not gonna bother with it.
Right.
Signing Colin Kaepernick, if we lose, 50,000 viewers on a Sunday or whatever, like, that's X amount of money. I'm just not gonna do it. Like, we can
Right,
have
yeah.
another serviceable quarterback.
Yeah.
But that comes from the problem, which is the way that I think his protest was perceived by, like, the general public. Or maybe not the way that it was perceived, because I'm not sure there was anything wrong with the way that it was perceived. I kind of like the fact that he angered a lot of people.
So, okay. So, if you're unaware, we mentioned this earlier. The protest was that when the national anthem was playing, he didn't stand up. And
Right.
then that turned into him kneeling, which several other football players and several other athletes in general started to follow in his steps and kneel during the national flag, or they would throw up the Black Panther fist during the national anthem.
And it originally stemmed from a lot of which was it a specific event that
I forget what event, but it was largely based around the fact, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong,
Yeah.
that it was over the fact that a lot of like Black or African American people are mistreated by like police brutality.
Right.
That's
I
most
think
things of that
I think
nature.
Yeah.
a policeman was acquitted or something of the murder of a
Yeah.
black
I
person or
think
something.
I think his quote was just in general that he's not going to stand for the national anthem celebrating a country where people of color are mistreated, something
Okay.
like that.
Cool.
And
Yeah.
the things that he cited were African American men being shot by police.
Okay.
I don't
Yes.
think he really mentioned like, oh, well, this guy was acquitted, so blah blah.
It was
Right.
in general, we can
Right.
see this happens.
So, what's the problem?
Okay.
What
So
do you
what's
mean?
the problem with what specifically is what
Yeah.
I'll say.
Just any of it. Like why?
With what he
why-
said or how he did it?
So I can see both sides.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that you have is that the national anthem and the flag to quite a few people is a symbol of our country. And
Okay.
and the people that I heard legitimate complaints from were people who served in the military who said, I knew a lot of people who died for these symbols, is that symbolically that's what they fought for. And while you can say, well, that's silly, they shouldn't fight for something abstract, the reasoning behind that is clear in my mind.
Okay.
And so for him to kneel when his job is playing a game, for him
For
to
people's entertainment.
right, for him to protest that is childish or is more misplaced.
Where I
So-
think it stemmed a lot from the fact that people feel like, where people, soldiers specifically, are putting their lives on the line, where his job is to play a game once a week and do training the rest of the week,
And get paid millions of dollars.
get paid millions for people's entertainment,
Right.
which is only allowed because the people are sacrificing their lives. If they weren't there, suddenly he becomes irrelevant because suddenly there's a draft and pro sports pretty much get shut down.
Yeah.
So who do you think when do you think it's appropriate to protest then? Like in what scenario?
I mean, I'm not sure. I personally don't think there's anything against him protesting because there's an asterisk next to that I'll talk about in a second. Is that if he wants to exercise his First Amendment right to protest or to speak out or to be vocally against something, that's his right to do that. I don't think anyone should force him to stop that because that's an infringement of his First Amendment right.
Yeah.
Additionally, that doesn't stop people from calling it stupid because that's their First Amendment right.
Yeah.
Sure.
People can call him stupid, people can call him childish, people can call him ridiculous, people can call him whatever they want. The asterisk is that he is an employee of an organization. And if the employee rules say, you must do this, and he does not do this. And I don't know what the NFL's policy is, I don't know what the 49ers policy is,
Yeah.
but if it's in the policy to stand during the national anthem, or to not kneel, or to do X while the national anthem is playing, then he has to follow that. And if he gets fined for it, I see no problem with that.
I doubt there's any language about that.
I wouldn't know.
We'll look it up while someone talks.
But what was your... So yeah, I think that he has every right to do it, whether...
So even just a short search says that players are encouraged, but they are not required to
Right.
stand.
So yeah, so that's the NFL does not require people to stand, but if they did, that would be something he would have to do because if he didn't, he would face a fine.
Sure,
and that's
yeah.
perfectly reasonable because it's a private
He
business.
signed a contract.
Right.
Yeah.
And he signed a contract to follow the rules.
Yeah.
Although I do understand the argument that it is in some form disrespectful to those people who are overseas sacrificing their lives so that people like us can do what we want, or people like Colin Kaepernick can afford to play a game for people's entertainment for the most
For
part.
millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Right.
So where I do find that to be disrespectful of those people, because like where it has a quote right here, he says, like this is a direct quote from Colin Kaepernick, "I'm not going to stand up and show pride in a flag for a country that oppresses black people and people of color. To me, this is bigger than football, and it would be selfish on my part to look the other way. There are bodies in the street, and people are getting paid leave and getting away with murder." So whether your stance is here or there on mistreatment of people who are of color or whatever, by police, I think I don't know what they would be, but I think it's possible there could be a better way to do it.
Right.
Where you're not disrespecting. My issue wasn't that he decided to protest this. It was that in the way he did it, brought disrespect on people he didn't intend for it to be.
Right.
Or he intended for it to be, I'm not going to show pride for my country, because in my country, there are people who are mistreated that are of a certain race by police. Which I think is a different topic and podcast entirely.
Right. Unless we want to get into it.
I mean, it'll make this a
That's
long
what
podcast.
I wanted to talk about, but
that's fine.
We can talk about it.
we don't
But
have to.
I think the problem is that what he did
Shoot.
was not
Are we good?
Yeah.
respectful of those people who are actually sacrificing their lives.
The other side of this is, and this is, I've heard this before, is that the people who agree with him are saying, well, if this is not the right way to protest, then what is the right way to protest? And I think there's some validity to that, but in my eyes, I would ask the question of why. I want to word this very carefully. Okay, Graham.
Mm-hmm.
Do you agree with Colin Kaepernick? Do you support his protest?
Yes.
Okay, why?
Because I think that the cause that he's got, that he has in mind, is
Okay.
really valid.
And what causes that?
That, blacks specifically
Sure.
are at the receiving end of a lot of brutality.
Okay.
What's the word?
Police brutality.
No, well, yeah, police brutality, but I'm talking about like
on a systemic level?
yeah, systemic.
Okay. And how? Like give reasoning.
Look at any of like recent headlines about the acquittal of like police officers and the shooting
Sure.
of black people and stuff like that.
So, and here's my take on some of that.
Mhm.
If there is a question, if anyone says that there is no example of police being overly aggressive or police, abusing their power, they're lying. Like they're
Yeah.
being ridiculous. There are very clear cases where a cop either abused his power, was prejudiced,
Yeah.
did the wrong thing.
If you don't agree with that, you're being stupid.
You're straight up wrong.
You are blind.
Everyone
You
can
are-
agree with
You are being
this.
selective.
Yes.
However, I disagree that this is a grand systemic conspiracy type
I
problem.
don't think it's a conspiracy.
but
Like those are very different.
but I'm saying I don't think they're all that different, and I can explain why if you
Okay.
want me to.
I would be interested to hear why.
I'm not going to
I don't
assume
equate those two terms at all.
I'm not going to assume what people believe.
Okay.
But the way that it looks is that there are, and sort of what he said, is that this country as a whole is systemically keeping people down, right? Or systemically mistreating people might be the right word.
Mistreating, probably.
Okay. And since, in my eyes, is that when the word systemic is used, that means that there is a law, there is a policy, there is some inherent system that is in place to do this.
Well, that's not what I mean.
Right. And because that doesn't exist,
Right.
I struggle to use the word systemic. And I think anyone who says that it's systemic means that there's some sort of secret shadow part of the government that's organizing all of this oppression. And I think that's absurd.
Right.
I think-
they should use a different word.
I mean, maybe that's.
It's
I mean, that is
semantics,
somewhat
yeah.
semantics, but I think it's an important. It's an important definition to give.
Okay. So let's change that term then.
If you want to
Let's
say,
call
that,
it.
if you want to say that it is,
Even just widespread, like
How do you mean?
just
let's just stick with the word systemic.
Okay.
But let's qualify that it's not like actually
there are
systemic.
no actual laws in place,
Right.
But I do
say
think that
oppress blacks, right.
But I think that yeah. I mean, I don't know what term to call it because it speaks to the sort of like
Because
just like sort of under the skin racism or classism,
And I think-
sexism, whatever that exists in the world. Like,
and my response to that is, how do you change that? What's protesting going to do?
anger people and get them talking about it.
But
What
realistically,
does that solve?
It doesn't do
realistically,
anything.
let's say I'm some guy. I live in Kansas.
Right.
There's probably people in Kansas who don't like Colin Kaepernick.
Oh, sure.
And it goes beyond. Well,
granddad doesn't
he
like
protested
that.
our flag. Right. Let's say I don't care about that, and it's just he's black.
Okay.
Now I see him protesting the flag. Am I going to go? I stopped caring that he's black.
No. It probably entrenches people further in their beliefs more than anything else.
And so I think,
But-
what do we do about what this seems to boil down to is what do we do about racism? And I think, in my view, I personally will be an example of attempting not to be racist.
Good.
And right, which is sort of, it seems fairly obvious.
Goals.
And B, if I see actual racism occurring, I will speak out against that.
Yes.
That's great.
And so,
These are things we should all do.
Yeah.
right, these feel very obvious to me. And I
Right.
think the problem is that realistically, any one of us at any random day could walk up and say, you know what, Chinese people, just don't like them. Like, I'm going to find a Chinese guy and oppress him today. It's like, so what do we do to that? What do we do about that? I don't know if there's a single thing we can do about that.
Are you going to sit this person down and show them a PowerPoint as to
Right.
why
Why
people
Chinese
of that
people
specific
are-
race
that's
would
the
be
problem.
fine?
Like-
Are you going to take all of the American
Right.
people because you can't pick out a racist by looking at them
Right.
and go, okay, the whole nation on this day is going to stay home and watch a PowerPoint presentation put on by this person who's going to show you why racism is bad. And people who are against racism will go, I'm not going to watch that because I'm not a racist.
Right.
And then people who are racist are probably going to go, I'm not going to watch that because I'm not a racist.
And even
because
people-
they don't think they're racist. And even if they do think they're racist, they're going to go, I'm
Because
not
I'm
going to
white."
watch that
Right.
because these people are inferior to me.
Right.
And so that doesn't serve to help.
To have
being
a
said-
racist on the show.
That being said, are your grandparents busy?
Yeah, my grandparents. That's
That being said, does that mean I don't think that there are any racists in like places of power in the government? That's absurd. Obviously, there are people who have power who are racist. This is inherent. There are people who were grand dragons of the KKK who used to serve as senators. I mean, racists exist. Racists are probably in a lot of places, and racists probably exist within places of power. But other than seeing that this, senator, for example, is being racist and saying, well, I'm not going to vote for him because he's a racist, I can't change his mind. I can just take away his power.
So what's the point of protest?
Well,
Like-
if you want to find something specific, because and this could be something specific. Later, he mentioned specific things and said, "This is part of the protest that I'm doing." And if he wants to call attention to injustice that's happening, great.
I mean,
But
he
if
did
it's
that
just-
from the get go, like that. He made known like why he did the thing.
He didn't give specific examples until later.
Okay, well, specific examples, but like,
Regardless,
yeah,
if people want to, because decrying racism and saying that racism is what I'm protesting about is sort of like it's nailing Jello to the wall. Right. Because it's trying to find something that doesn't have a solution and doesn't have a face and attacking it. Is you're going to be swatting at air. But if you say this cop killed this kid in cold blood and he got justice, and there's something problem with the system that let him out, that's solvable.
Well, there's got to be something wrong with the system that let him out. Like,
yeah,
because I do think that's.
I think we can agree with that.
that like there was a specific. I wish I could remember what the event was.
Well, I
think there was a specific acquittal that happened directly before he started these protests.
I don't remember.
Okay,
I don't remember. But there's a recent one that was Philando Castile.
Mm-hmm.
He was in his car. He's a black guy.
Right.
He's in his car, and if memory serves, he reached back to get his registration, or reached back to get something, whether it was his license or his registration. Cop pulls a gun and shoots him, and he dies. And that cop was acquitted.
Right.
Do I think that's bad? Yes. Do I think that cops need better training? Yes.
Yes.
Do I think that this was a clear injustice and an example of a cop doing something wrong and very, very bad things happening because of it? Yes. Do I think he deserves to get thrown in jail? Probably. But so if you want to protest that, go for it. But if you just want to say racism, you're swatting at nothing.
I think that if you're a person that was paying attention to what was going on during the time, I'm pretty sure it was clear what he was talking about. At least it was to me.
But you can't remember it.
No, because there have been literally 20 cases since then, all nearly identical.
No.
Okay, well let's count them then.
Maybe maybe at face value, but the ones is that for every one that it's this person was shot in cold blood and this cop made a mistake, and the cop received no punishment for it. There's usually one where the cop did something wrong and they suffered punishment, or the cop was painted as some sort of mass murderer.
I said literally identical, and that was obviously not correct English.
I mean, I usually don't like arguing semantics, but I think because because I think this is a very important topic, we need to be very careful. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, you're right. So
that's why our language speed has dropped.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Similar cases have popped up a lot, in the last year or so.
That I think
enough that I can't remember the exact one. That
the media tends to paint a lot of these incidents as the same. Is that you have a cop, or you have a typically young black person who gets killed by a cop, and the people on Twitter immediately take sides and say, well, the cop did the right thing, or the cop is under a lot of pressure, so they made a decision and that was the one. Or you have people saying the cop needs to be thrown in jail, the cop needs to be paraded through the streets, the cop needs to be hung, I don't know, whatever.
I think there's some probably middling answers in there
which
too.
is usually where I stand.
Yeah.
Which is I'm gonna wait for details, because the headline of cop kills person of color is not enough for me to make a decision, because it's possible. And there was a case where a black woman was holding a shotgun and had it pointed at her 4-year-old daughter and was using her as a human shield, and a cop killed her. Now, are people going to say, well, how dare that cop? Or are they going to say, no, this person was bad and the cop did the right thing? But for every one of those, there's probably another one where it was but there was another case, I can't remember the name, of a kid was in a park and he was waving a toy gun and got shot by police.
Okay.
And people will say, well, shouldn't have been waving a toy gun. But realistically, the cop should have better training to be able to identify a fake gun.
Or at the very least,
show
don't
some
just
restraint.
immediately shoot someone.
Let me speak to the training thing, because I think there's an answer to that aspect specifically.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't think they need better training. They need different training.
Yeah.
Let's
that could
point
be
to my example that I always go to here, the United Kingdom.
Tim Tebow.
Tim Tebow.
Tim Tebow.
The perfect
when he
American.
played for the New York Jets. No. Okay. You look at the United Kingdom. When their police officers or whatever are given training, they are trained to, on their dominant hand side, they are to reach for a ranged taser.
Sure.
On their non-dominant side is where the gun is held, along with anything that can lethally kill someone from a distance or up and close is on the non-dominant side.
Sure.
Things that will stun or stop a person are on the dominant side, so they reach for that
I
naturally.
like that a lot.
That is where I think we should be. You look at our training, our police on the dominant side, they have guns. That's it.
Yeah.
If you were to, let's say in this room we're in, someone bursts through the door and points a gun at me, I'm going to reach for something that I can reach immediately with my strong hand, which in this case will be a candle in a glass bottle, and I will throw it. Because I have things that are far more useful as a weapon that I could hit someone with on my left side, but my left side is not my strong side.
Sure.
You change the training, which will make vast improvements initially. You'll cut down on a significant number of killing of any race,
Sure.
period. Which I think is, I'm going to say this and take it with a grain of salt. I think the biggest issue is the amount of killings of any race, period. So when you look at the math, which is what I've been looking at over here, African Americans make up 13.2% of the United States population.
Okay.
In 2017, police have killed, what's the number? Forget what it is, but a fourth of those were attributed to mental illness, which leaves the grand total people for like non-mentally ill people around 436, basically. And then you look at demographics as to where that breaks down by location, because if you would imagine, if you look at the number of killings by police officer against someone of a particular race, if it were, say, African Americans, you would expect it, if this were just by numbers, to be around that same number of like, what was that, like 13%. It's closer to like 30. But then you look at where these things happen.
Right.
They're in neighborhoods like, closest one for my example, say downtown Kansas City, a primarily African American community.
Right.
Or you look at where a lot of them have happened is places in states that are like Missouri, where actually white people are one of the minorities of the state.
Right.
And so you look at where it's happening, there's a 20% difference in overall population, but that's largely due to the location. And I think where there's no realistic way to fix, as I say, fix, but improve the situation, but you can't just go, well, because this place has had more killings by my police officers, I'm going to say that this place needs different training. You have to fix all training all at once to help. But you also look in those same neighborhoods where they have that extra 20-ish or more percent that makes up that difference. The killings of other races are also significantly higher.
Right.
So where I think there is, to some extent, racial profiling, which goes on in not just police, but also things like airport security, things like that. And if I'm going to be 100% honest, things like racial profiling in like places like airports has worked. If you look at like Israel, that's their security system. It's more successful.
If it looks sketchy, they just pull them out.
That's more successful than our security system.
Which ours is a joke, but I think that's sort of a conversation.
You look at the stats of ours, it's stopped literally 0 terrorist bombings. They have stopped countless ones. Which is, like you said, another podcast. But long trade of thought to say, I think fixing police training goes a long ways.
Yeah.
But if you look in the places where there are anywhere, I think the highest is a 70% of African Americans in that county are killed. You also look at what the normal rate is of other races being killed, and it's also significantly higher.
Yeah.
Which means, although I do think that problem exists, where racial profiling leads to more deaths of people of various different races, depending on where you are in the country, I think there's some validity to racial profiling,
Right.
but police training would go the biggest difference in stopping that.
I think the only pushback I have of comparing the UK to the US is that in the US it's legal to own a gun.
Yes.
And we have guns everywhere.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
And I think the importance of having a police officer be ready to
Yeah.
use a gun and be quick to draw a gun
Yeah.
is that the person they're potentially facing also has a gun.
Yeah.
And I think that, like, guns in the U.S. is an entirely different podcast. But I think,
Hey, knives
Right.
are more lethal than guns. Sorry.
Different podcast.
did you hear, real quick, did you hear that the UK is actually having what was it? It is creating rules to control knives and acid because there have been so many knife and acid attacks.
The UK had problems 6 years ago, ish, where they were like, we're putting restrictions on what kind of knives can be bought. Where
Right.
butter knives were hard to get a hold of.
Right.
And then, because they're like, we have too many problems with knife gangs. And knife gangs went, but you know what I can buy? Scissors.
Yeah.
And so they had to put restriction on scissors. And then people went, I can't buy scissors.
I'm a school teacher.
Yeah. And so they're like, maybe we messed up.
I mean, I think...
And so they got rid of all of it. And they're back to knives. They're like, okay, restrictions on knives. And now gangs are going, acid. And they're like, shit.
I think like
Everything's bad.
to say it's. I mean, it goes to the argument that it's like if I want to kill someone, it hardly matters what I have on hand. I'm going to do it. If I
Yeah.
smother them with a pillow,
It could happen.
right?
You can't mass smother people with pillows, though.
No, you're right.
All in one
And I
location.
think the idea of saying knives are more deadly than guns is sort of silly. But I think that like yeah, I mean, gun control is a different argument. But
Yeah.
I think
That's another podcast.
there's more to that than just saying, well, anyone who thinks that is silly.
Right.
But yeah, I think it. Man, I'm imagining a mass smothering now.
I'm imagining just pillows raining from the sky. Everyone's just like,
Right, and it's like face hugging people with pillows.
face hugging
Right.
pillows.
And they're like,
Or there's just one guy sitting on top of a skyscraper, just like, yeah.
fucking got him. Finally.
All right. So before we go too far down that rabbit trail,
Let's not go down that.
do we want to go? I imagine the answer is probably no. But do we want to go a level deeper into the Kaepernick thing and ask the question of like why? I mean, you touched on it earlier about why the symbol is specifically representative of like this
We can.
group of people.
How much time are we at?
I mean, we're at an hour, so
Oh,
we
so-
can just cut it and then talk about it next time or something.
Let's
just talk about it next time.
we can talk about it a little bit.
Okay.
Because I feel like I won't want to talk about it next week. Like I'm okay
Yeah,
with talking
well, that's
about
true.
it now.
One
That's
week,
true,
I'm
but-
fine.
Right.
I'm not going to want to have a very serious podcast 2 weeks in a
2
row.
weeks in a row.
Right.
We won't do serious the whole time this time. We'll throw in something else,
Yeah. Right.
whatever it may be.
We'll have a lot
but
of wacky editing in this one.
That's not true.
That's not true. Okay, so what's your question about the flag and the national anthem and Colin Kaepernick and protesting and kneeling?
Well, okay, so I remember Colin Kaepernick specifically saying, you know, after he received, it was like he did it and then criticism like came in like a shotgun blast,
Right.
All
Like
in
things
his
tend to
face.
do
A radical
with any
storm.
version
Right.
of media.
And one of the ones that he addressed was the oh well, I don't mean to do, you know, any I don't mean any disrespect to the people serving in our military or whatever. I have, you know, military friends and family that I respect very much, and I'm grateful for what they've done.
Sure.
I'm just speaking to this other issue.
Sure.
And people still are like, but the flag equals veterans. Like, that's what it is.
Sure.
Like,
Okay, can I address
why?
that?
Why is that? Like,
Okay. this is not going to come out 100% how I mean it, because to an extent, I agree more with the people who defend the flag than with what you're saying about agreeing with Colin Kaepernick.
Mm-hmm.
People who are serving in the military either did or have take a certain amount of... The people I know who have done this seem to take more pride in the flag than, say, I do.
Sure.
A person who sits at home can play video games, eat food.
Right.
If I want McDonald's, I'm going to go get McDonald's.
That's me.
Shoes.
That's me.
Yeah. So they take more pride in the flag, largely because they're defending our right to do whatever it is we feel like doing at any given moment. And so where they're defending, I don't think they're saying they're defending just the flag, but the flag is a symbol of your country. And
Right.
where a military defends a country, if a flag is a symbol of a country, it's not 100% directly related, but there's a very strong connection. And so I think when you say, I'm not going to stand behind my country because this, what you're protesting may be all right, but I think to say you're not going to stand behind your entire country because of this one aspect is, for lack of a better term, small-minded. It'd be like for me to say, I'm not going to work for my company because they get this material in a way I don't like.
I think
Right.
I think I can see that point of view, and I
Yes.
don't necessarily disagree with it, but I think there's somewhat of a more like practical view that I have of it.
Yeah.
Which is that if you were to join the military, what is your involvement with the flag? It is when you're in the military, you are trained to not let it touch the ground. You're trained to if it's flying, you take it down when it even rains. It is on your fatigues, it is on your dress whites, your dress blues, whatever branch it is on every ship you
Folded
are
a certain way.
right. It's folded a
handled
certain
carefully.
way. It is what you care for. It is sort of a symbol of your discipline and your involvement in the military. And if you die in the military, a flag is draped
Right.
over your casket, and then it is folded up and given to your loved ones.
Right.
Like, I have one of those in my house right now because
Yeah.
my grandfather served in the military, my other grandfather served in the military, I have an uncle who served in the military, my dad served in the military. I have some military involvement in my family.
Right.
And so there's a lot of like focus on the flag being important when you're in the military, and they care a lot for it.
Sure.
And so I think the people, I'm not going to assume that all of the people who had a problem with Kaepernick protesting the flag and the anthem were people who even had any involvement in the military. I imagine it was probably a lot of people who were looking for something. He can't do that. That's disrespectful to the flag and
Right.
this country. Like, I imagine there were quite a few people who served in the military who didn't care.
Yeah, those people
But-
existed.
Right. But I think that from a practical standpoint, in the military, you are given a lot of training and a lot of sort of discipline in saying this flag is symbolic of what you are serving, what you're dedicated to, what you're committing to. So you need to treat it with the utmost respect.
I can see that.
Yeah.
So I would ask, or I would, in a perfect world, those men like me
do not exist.
But this is
This is not the perfect world.
in a perfect world.
Maybe I should put a link in the description.
Yeah. No, that was like the only fun part of this whole podcast right there.
Say we don't. Scramble.
Okay, so I like if that's the case, I can understand that. Like I haven't had that experience, and so I can't ascribe that same type of
Sure.
reverence to it.
Sure.
But like I can understand it.
Yeah.
So let's just have some consistency with that. Like, why are you okay with people wearing the American flag on their chubbies, or like flapping it about like torn
Sure.
to shreds on the back of their truck?
Yeah.
Like,
no, I
let's
agree.
just have consistency with the respect of the flag, if that's what it's going to be.
But I think-
with that demographic of people,
I think the only difference is that if you are chasing down every person who has like a flag on their van or
Right.
something like that. And I don't think flying an American flag is inherently disrespectful. Like if you have a bumper sticker on the back of your car, or like I have a pair of American flag swim trunks.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't think
I quite frankly think that's incredibly disrespectful, but I appreciate your right to wear them.
right, whatever. But I think I wouldn't be surprised if there was someone who was sort of writing into certain businesses as saying you shouldn't do this.
Yeah.
But I think whether a business says anything about that is...
I'm not talking about businesses, though. I'm talking about a jackass driving down the street with a flag hanging out the back of his truck.
I get that. I think there is more... I think because this was so high profile, people got upset. I think that there are probably people out there who, if they saw a flag getting ripped to shreds by the wind because it's haphazardly flapping from the back of a truck that's going 70 miles, right? Yeah, that's going 70 miles an hour, and the seams are just splitting apart. Like,
it doesn't make me happy.
I imagine there's someone who's very upset at that.
Right.
But
I just wish that they were more vocal.
Sure, but I think that it is. Like, I think short of laws. Well, okay.
I don't think any laws.
Here's the analogy I'll give. When people burn an American flag, does that get? Are you upset at that? Are you? What's your opinion on people burning the American flag? You don't care?
I don't want to talk about it.
Well, I'm saying this is.
How do you mean?
That's what I mean. I don't want to talk about it.
I think that there are people like that's very upsetting to people.
Sure.
I don't like it.
Yeah.
No.
But it's their right to do it.
Right.
And so I think as much as it's Colin Kaepernick's right to do it, doesn't mean the disrespect isn't there.
Well, I will point
whether
out
he intended it or not doesn't mean it's not there. Do I think that he deserves some sort of punishment for expressing himself? No.
No.
Yeah.
You did point out the fact that like people wearing the American flag as like clothing,
Swim trunks.
Yeah. I would say that's an entirely different matter. They're not the same at all.
Okay.
To put it on to put it on clothes, I think people don't do it as like I'm doing this, I'm protesting this. They're showing pride. They want to express the flag and how they like the flag.
Yeah.
Right.
If they were to take an American flag and cut it up into a shirt,
right,
people would have beef. Because it's not that like I have a pair of shoes that are patterned after the American flag. Like I have swim trunks that are the American flag. I have a tank top that is the American flag.
Right.
Like,
I guess my argument was more just going toward okay, if we're boiling down the flag to its purest element, like why is not standing a bigger deal than wearing it on clothes
because
there's actually
it's the attitude
language about wearing the flag
yes. I think the rule I would say, but I think it's technically a law, is that you're not to take the flag and then cut it up and to put it into a vertical. You're not supposed to take the flag itself, turn it into a shirt.
Right.
Technically, you're not supposed to turn it into a cape, but people do it on the 4th of July anyway.
All the time.
But technically, that's not like damaging the flag unless they get fireworks shot into them, which is likely.
Where you're saying what the difference is, I think the difference is the attitude behind it.
Uh-huh.
So if I were to take a flag and wear it as a cape and run around on the 4th of July, I'm not doing it in a manner to say I'm not going to support my country, to not stand during the national anthem,
right,
just a song of your country, when everyone salutes the flag and those people who have worked to defend it, to say that I'm not going to stand behind my country because of this, I think is different. Whereas to wear it as clothing, whether it's the actual flag, if you take the flag and cut it up, that's not what I'm talking about. Right. As to wear it as a shirt or take the actual flag as a cape, which you're technically not supposed to do, I think is different because you're not doing it in that manner. It's the attitude behind it.
No, I understand.
And I think additionally, I think there's some valid separation between Colin Kaepernick's protest of the anthem and the flag, because I put a whole lot less credit on the anthem than I do the flag. Because if you know anything about the anthem, there's not a whole lot to it. Like, it was a poem by Francis Scott Keys that was put over the top of I believe, English drinking song.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
I feel
And so
like
it's
most
like-
anthems are English drinking song tunes.
There
at
are a
this
lot of
point.
hymns that are a lot of drinking,
Yeah,
English drinking.
That's
side.
what everyone
Right.
knew.
And so it was like, do I think that the anthem's great, that it has a lot of power behind it? Sure. I've sung it at a KU basketball game before. But I think if you want to protest that, I have no problem. I don't think anyone has any valid concern over that. But the flag, I think, is something different.
That's interesting.
It's like I was saying before, I don't see the problem as, combination of 2 points. First one is I don't see it as it's the attitude behind it. So if he were to, say he didn't stand for the anthem or the flag, and say he said it was because of a religious belief, and I don't know what religion that would be, I would go, okay, exercising your religious beliefs.
Islam.
Yeah, okay, go for it. I don't care.
Technically speaking, maybe.
I mean, it is technically speaking.
Yeah, I would go, okay, I don't care. All the power to you, exercise your religion. That is your right. To do it in a manner of saying I'm not going to stand behind my country is a little different.
Yeah.
And it is still his right to not do it, but I think it's not about the right. I think it was about the attitude.
Right.
I don't think... Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. I didn't want to cut you off.
I was going to say, I don't think... There were people who were mad at the action, but I think had the reason been different, I think the amount of people that were angry would have gone from, let's say, from 1 to 10, a 7,
Right.
down to a 2 or a 3.
Yeah.
Because it was I was talking to some people in my life who I won't name because they know people who listen to this podcast, and I was talking to them and they were saying something. You left. It's not my parents.
No, I didn't think it was.
It's my grandma.
No, definitely not them. Where they were saying their problem wasn't that he wasn't standing for the anthem. They were saying, which is where I got the viewpoint, it was that he was doing it not in defiance, which is what they said, but clearly not what they meant, but defiance of what the flag stood for.
Sure.
But
I disagree with that because I don't think he explicitly said what about the flag he disagrees with, which is the sort of overarching law enforcement brutality toward black people. So I think there was a clear distinction between anything else involved in our country and that.
He was protesting the flag and the anthem as a protest of the country.
yeah,
As a protest of police brutality.
Right. Or whatever it was. Yeah. Whether it was beyond
It was-
police brutality.
I think it was police brutality.
Whichever.
Um,
But yeah, I think he was protesting the flag and the anthem as symbolic representation of the country as a whole. Is the way I understood it.
okay.
And it was the way the country is dealing with.
So I'm going to
Next
pull the
issue.
exact quote out
Yeah,
again. I read it
cool.
earlier, but I wanted to bring it back up.
Yeah.
It was, I am not going to stand up to show pride in a flag for a country that oppresses black people and people of color. To me, that is bigger than football, and it would be selfish on my part to look the other way, and so on.
Yeah.
But it was more about, not going to stand up for a flag for a country that shows pride in in a country that oppresses black people.
Okay.
Because I don't think, and maybe he's said more between
I don't know
now and August 2016. But
when his protest started.
right, from what I understand is that he never said, well, the white on the flag, which commonly symbolizes something, is what I'm protesting, and the 50 stars are what I'm... Right. It was just, this flag is the flag of the U.S., and I have a problem with how the U.S. is going. That's pretty much all what it boils down to. So I'm going
I guess that's fair.
take
Yeah.
a knee. Yeah. So yeah.
Cool.
If you hate Colin Kaepernick and have strong opinions on what we've said, if anything that's been said upset you in any way, just leave a comment. We don't
Leave
really
a comment. We haven't gotten any of those spicy YouTube comments
Yeah.
yet, so please start that for us.
Yeah.
Please don't, because
I
I
want-
get emails.
I want another
and
comment
I don't want
that
to have to
says-
sift through the comments.
I'm waiting for a comment that just says first. All right. So let's do
With that, yeah.
Let's
fuck
do-
all this other
Yeah, all this serious stuff. Yeah. Let's do question of the week. Question from last week was, or did we have other stuff we wanted to talk about?
No.
Okay. So question.
Hour and 15 minutes.
Man, that took a whole hour.
We can cut a lot of stuff out. We repeated ourselves quite a bit.
Yeah, we repeated ourselves a little bit.
And we can cut this little segment out.
So question of the week. Last week it was, if you were to make sure, if let's say Hollywood fully runs out of ideas, and they just start completely ripping movies from the past and remaking them, what movie or franchise would you ensure never gets remade? You said The Matrix.
I did say The Matrix.
But that's bullshit.
Man,
that's a bad answer.
I put quite a bit of thought into this over the week, and I feel bad, but I'm sticking with my answer from last week.
Star Wars?
I am not a big fan of what they're doing with Star Wars, because Disney was pretty open about the fact they were like, yeah we're going to run it until it stops making money, which is never. And I'm like, say what you will about George Lucas, the universe he created has a set amount of things he's made in his storyline, and his ability to direct his movies was not great. And the idea that Disney's just going to keep going and going forever is bad. I wish they would take the first 6 movies that were made and be like, okay, we're done. Not that the other movies aren't fine. It's that I don't want them to go until Star Wars is like, oh yeah, Land Before Time. They made 50 of those.
I'm just waiting for the sing-along movie. Then I'll be back.
It's not that I really hate what they're doing. I don't want to get to the point in the future where they're going to go, Star Wars 87, the Empire comes back again.
Right. Let's see, what's a very Star Warsy title? The Fate of the Sith. Yeah, Star Wars,
Fate of the Sith.
Star Wars 87, The Fate of the Sith. That's very jarring. I think I said Back to the Future.
Last time. 10 out of 10, man. That's a good one.
That's a solid one.
I'm going to revise my answer from the Matrix trilogy to just
Land Before Time.
The first Matrix. Because
that's
I think that's more the sort of like 2000 year 2000 like special effects, like everything aesthetically pointed in this one perfect direction.
The first Matrix had a lot of charm.
Like it was just, that's one of my favorite movies. I love it.
I think it has.
You haven't seen The Matrix?
I never bothered.
Andrew Meyer, 2017. I think the interesting thing about that movie is how much like weird jank there is in it. Like like there's a ton of just like weird stuff about it, but it's so charming and sort of well done with what they did. Like Keanu Reeves isn't an amazing actor. He will never be an amazing actor. But that one line where it's like, I know Kung Fu. I will remember that until I die.
Yeah. Like his real character or his let me rephrase that. His acting ability and the character of Neo just like lined up in this like perfect dream of like just like flat-footed kind of I know Kung Fu.
Right.
It's perfect.
He's playing a character who is somewhat out of his wits and in over his head for most of the movie, and that's what the character is.
Right.
And so that final like scene where he finally understands that he has all this power, like he sort of does it well, but it's really kind of over the top, and I think it's sort of appropriate for
it's
the movie.
Great.
Right.
It's an amazing
like
movie.
it's really strange. Yeah. But yeah, no, I could actually see that.
Okay.
The other two Matrix movies are.
Yeah, I mean, it's whatever. Like, I enjoy them for what they are. They kind of complete the arc, but like The Matrix, the original The Matrix stands on its own.
Okay. If you we already did that one. If you can live in any fictional world, what would you choose? As
Hentai.
All right, we're gonna cut that out. If you could live, that's one world.
It all happens all at once.
That's a lot of
squid.
Lots of squid.
Lots of tentacles. I'm just gonna. Okay, so we're gonna cut here, and then I'm just going to. Okay, so the next one is if you can live in any fictional world, any like currently created fictional world, what would it be and why? Whether it's from a book or a TV show or a movie or
That's
whatever.
a really good one.
That's tough.
Yeah, that's super tough.
We're gonna have to cut out a lot of blank space while we think.
Yeah, I don't know if I have an answer. Maybe
I'll
like
just say. Oh yeah, go ahead.
maybe like wherever the Beast lives in Beauty and the Beast after the curse is broken, because it's just like
So
peaceful.
just normal, like
That's
medieval
France, I think.
France.
Yeah, but there's a lot of hot women there.
I mean,
who
that's
used to
true.
be furniture and probably
Like I
are
said.
looking for a lot of attention. If you know what I mean. Damn it!
All right. I'll say. What? I'll say the Dragon Tales universe.
Hell yeah, man.
Oh
I'm-
man, that's a really good answer.
Where like I can just get really high, rub this stone, go chill with like org and whatever.
Remember when those two kids from Dragon Tales just smoked a lot of ganja?
Really vaped hard,
and then imagine a
that
bunch of
rainbow
dragons.
stone, and they were just like hanging out with all their best dragon buds.
That's what their
We
dealer
don't
was
know
named.
what happened behind the scenes.
Rainbow Stone? That was their dealer's name?
Rainbow Stone.
Hey guys,
Yeah.
if you need more
Yeah,
candy,
yeah.
call up the Rainbow Stone.
More candy. Yeah.
If you need another fix, just call up Rainbow Stone. They're like, yeah, man. Yeah.
So my answer would look really cool, but you would eventually die in this universe to say Samurai Jack.
Oh, nice.
No, I'm into that.
Yeah.
It'd look really sick. But that being said, I'd last, 2 days maybe?
Not long. I don't think any of us would, frankly.
I'd be
Yeah,
like,
I'm
you
no
want to
Sarah-
listen to
Sarah-
my podcast?
Sarah, my jock.
And then, what's his name? Aku.
Aku.
Just like,
Really messes me
turns out
up.
your heart. Yeah.
Yeah.
Alright. Well, we'll finalize answers next week.
Yeah, for sure.
And hopefully give better ones. Other than what Graham said.
Hey, I have great answers.
Yeah.
Next week I'm gonna bring on another Kaepernick sympathizer.
Why?
Just kidding.
We say one thing. I don't sympathize or I'm not against closing statements. I'm see both sides of the argument where I'm not for or against.
The only thing I really didn't like about it was how volatile it became,
Yes.
and like
From both
how
sides.
even like on like CNN, which is supposed to be somewhat of a quote reputable unquote news source that's supposed to focus on like important things, they were like, is Colin Kaepernick a sign of the times of how this country is going? And it's like, man, I don't care. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't watch a
You
ton
can
of
point to
football.
the things that he's talking about, and maybe that's a sign of the
Right.
times. But I
Yeah,
think
But they're
Colin
like, no,
Kaepernick
it's Colin
himself-
Kaepernick. We need to talk about Colin Kaepernick.
Right.
Yeah, that was mostly what I was frustrated by.
Yeah.
Was how much it exploded when it really should have been like, oh, is that guy exercising his First Amendment right? And people were like, oh yeah, and they were like, oh man, that's,
Okay,
I disagree, or oh yeah, no, I can see where he's coming from, and then no news source covered it.
In a perfect world, actually.
Man, like,
Well, this again brings up the point of protest. Like, let's not get into it.
We'll talk
done.
about it after
We're done.
after we're done with the podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
even then, maybe not.
Maybe not.
Yeah, let's not.
But yeah, so
I
thank
just want to
you.
play Fortnite.
Thank you for listening to another episode of PDT Podcast. I need a PDT abbreviation. Pumpernickel
Donuts.
donuts. We've done donuts though. Pumpernickel, Diggery-Doo,
Dong bags.
so we can knock boots later. Yeah. Pumpernickel, Didgeridoo,
Trilby.
Trilby. Hell yeah! Bye bye everybody.
See you next week.
I hate that.
Trilby.